Hey, what's the deal, YouTube? It's your girl, MizHoney. Welcome back to the channel, you guys. We are here for Your Honor. This is the season finale of Your Honor, episode 10 of season 1. We don't yet know if Your Honor will be returning for a second season. I can't imagine what we would talk about. I realize now in episode 10 that Adam didn't go to Fia's as we all assumed that he was when he got the call in the last scene of episode 9. We all assumed that it was Fia calling him or texting him to tell him to come over because her father, Jimmy Baxter, wanted to meet Adam right away. It turns out he went to see his grandmother, and she ended up telling him about his mother's infidelity, and he doesn't end up coming home for the night. So when Judge Desiato wakes up and looks around the house looking for Adam. He can't find Adam. He goes to the in-law suite out back and Adam isn't there. And he is beside himself because he cannot find Adam. And he ends up calling Elizabeth, which is the mother-in-law, Adam's grandmother, and she comes over. She knows why he's not there. She knows. And she lets on that right there in the foyer that she told Adam about his mom's infidelity. And Judge Desiato, for the first time, we see him check her. Now, when we saw her a couple of episodes back, she was running the show. We know that she's a senator and Robin's mom, obviously, and she was taking some liberties with Judge Desiato and with Adam then, and sort of running the house and speaking her mind and questioning things that she shouldn't have been questioning. But here he is drawing the line when it comes to Adam, and he really does check her. And I do like what he says here, that Robin is dead and she has no way of explaining herself to Adam. He has no way of talking with his mom to see what went on. And even though it's the truth that she was having an affair, but it's something to think about for all of us, I would say, when we're in a rush to keep it real and to tell the truth. Like, the truth comes with consequences. I get it'll set you free. I understand all of that. But everything with balance, I think, is important, or temperance, I think, is important. Sometimes we do things for ourselves and not necessarily for others, although we tell ourselves that it is for the good of others, right? Baxter, Jimmy Baxter, is helping his son get ready for his day on the stand. This is quite possibly the last day of court or the next to last day of court, and Carlo Baxter is going to take the stand. Jimmy Baxter gives his son a sort of pep talk, and he wants him to know that he won't always be there, and he wants him to take over the gang, and he is hoping that he will rule the gang, not with impulse, but, with wisdom. Well, good luck with that, Jimmy. Good luck with that. Yeah, so there's this moment. Then we get to see where Lee goes down to see Big Mo, After a bit of verbal sparring between the two of them, Lee learns that Coffee took the Volvo on the 10th. It bothers me that people keep saying Coffee stole the Volvo. Coffee never stole the Volvo. Coffee was told to go and get the Volvo and take the Volvo to a salvage yard. The key was left for Coffee to go and get the Volvo and take it to a salvage yard. Coffee never stole the vehicle. It was Judge Desiato's lie that his car was stolen that in turn labeled Coffee as a car thief. I don't want that to get lost here in the midst of Jimmy Baxter tying his son's tie knot lovingly as he heads off to his murder trial, right? Also, don't want it to get lost in the midst of Michael Desiato's heartwarming conversation with Adam when Adam does finally show up. From having sat on the pier all night long thinking about his mom's infidelity in life and what's it all about. Okay? I don't want that to get lost in the midst of these two white men comforting their sons, talking lovingly to their sons, and these moments of reflection and emotionalism and, civility, right? I don't want it to get lost. Like I said, Adam shows up at Michael Desiato, his dad's office, and why didn't you tell me, Dad? And Judge Desiato is at a loss for words, and then Adam says, I wouldn't have told me either, I guess. And then Judge Desiato tells him this warm story about the day he married his mom, Robin, and the fact that he was so excited when, not just to marry her, but on that day he found out that she was pregnant with Adam, and he hugged her so hard that her ribs cracked. He cracked one of her ribs. And she went through the entire day in this immense pain. And when he found out about it, he asked her why. And she said that she just wanted him to be happy. It was such a happy day for him, as opposed to telling him what he had actually done and sort of putting him in this place of guilt and panic or whatever. She just decided to swallow it, swallow this broken rib and not tell him, that he had done it, that he had cracked the rib. And it's supposed to, I guess, mediate the feelings that Adam is feeling in regards to his mom not telling him about her infidelity, or Judge Desiato not telling Adam about the infidelity. I mean, okay, she was a saint, right? That cheated. Oh gosh. Okay, let's just move on. So we see where after having spoken with Big Mo and finding out that the Volvo was actually taken on the 10th, the day after Rocco's death, the truth hits Lee like a ton of bricks. I mean, she's working it all out in her head. And when she shows up in the courtroom, it's just as Carlo is taking the stand. And Judge Desiato, when he sees her come into courtroom, you can see there's a worried look on his face. Carlo tells his story about what happened between he and Kofi in his cell, and it is truly laughable. Like, it's completely laughable. I mean, he has been grilled and grilled and drilled and drilled until he's got the story down pat, and he tells it about how Coffee came into his cell and he was angry and he attacked him and he grabbed his balls, and Carlo fell backwards and hit his head, and his lawyer asked, was Coffee making any sounds? Did he say anything? He says, no, he didn't say anything. He was just roaring. You know, the implication there is that Coffee is an animal. All right. And oh, I will never forget that sound. And then he says he grabbed my balls and squozed them so hard I thought I would die. I knew I was going to die. I knew I was at the very least going to pass out. So I grabbed his hair and I smashed him up against the wall as much as I could to get him to let go. And well, how many times did you smash him? You smashed him 6 times. Did you know that? No, I didn't know that. I wasn't sure, but it's possible. And he says that then Coffee turns around after he gets him to let go of his scrotum and smashes his head, and he walks out, you know. Initially, he said that Coffee came into the cell and closed the door behind him, which was this act of confrontation, right? And it put him in this defense mode. Immediately when Lee hears this, she gets up and she walks out of the courtroom. And Judge Desiato sees her walk out, and he is once again worried. Now he knows, because he put Lee on the case, that Lee is a good attorney, and he put her on Coffee's case because he believed that she could get Coffee off. But now having her here poking around in this mess he's got going on with Mr. Baxter, it's not good. Well, Lee goes to the jailhouse and she lets herself into a cell and goes behind her, and she closes the door. And when she closes the door, it locks. And the only way to get out of that cell, now that you've closed the door behind you, is that you must have a person with a key on the opposite side of the door. That is the only way that you can go back out that door. And so she comes back to the court, and there has been a recess because after the initial testimony of Carlo, Judge Desiato wanted everyone to rest, and then they were going to come back for cross. But before cross, Lee has a conversation with the prosecuting attorney, Miss Meeks or Weeks, I can't remember her name exactly, Fiona. And Judge Desiato sees them talking, and he is that much more worried, right? Like every time he sees Lee moving about, he gets worried because he knows she's on to something. And so Fiona goes to do the cross-examination, and she is absolutely brilliant in her cross. And we see where Judge Desiato is continually but lightly kind of blocking her and approving the objections of the defense attorney. But he's doing it in a real slick kind of way, you know. And but it's not enough. She had already talked with Lee, and so she knew where she was going with this whole conversation. And when she gets to this place where she's going to just completely decimate his whole story about how Coffee came in and closed the door behind him and all of that, she says, well, are you sure he closed the door? Well, maybe he didn't close it all the way. And so she was like, well, did you know that the doors at OPP, when you close them behind you, they lock and you need a key. And he says, no, I didn't know that. And she's like, I bet you didn't. I bet you didn't know. And she goes and she sits down, like, this is, checkmate, right? And the defense attorney stands up and he says, quick question for you, Mr. Baxter. Could you be mistaken, given everything that you had gone through? Could you be mistaken in thinking that Coffee Jones closed the door behind him? He says, yeah, I mean, it's possible. And the defense attorney says, thank you. And so then he says, Carlo Baxter says, oh, he's seething. He's seething. He wants to slap the face of Fiona. The whole time that she's talking, he doesn't break his stare and his jaw is tight. And so when his attorney asked him, could he have been mistaken about Coffee closing that door? And he says, yes, I could have been mistaken. And the attorney says, okay, thank you very much. And he says, tell that to that see you next Tuesday. And Fiona says, excuse me? Everybody was aghast because he had done this really wonderful job of just remaining calm at the very least. It was a ridiculous story. But gets to this last second and he can't even hold it in. He's got to tell this lady what for. Excuse me? What did you say to me? Judge Desiato is like, Miss Weeks, please, Miss Weeks. Oh, so you want me to let this go, Judge? Okay, no problem. I'll let this go if that's what you want. But on one condition, bring that TV screen over here. So they bring the TV screen and they play the video of Coffee going up to the door of Carlo's cell and then going in, and she stands right there next to the TV as we're watching it. So it was moments, seconds, if you will. He goes in, and then just a few moments later, I would say no more than 10, 15, maybe 30 seconds later, maybe, he stumbles out of the cell. The door never closes, stumbles out of the cell and falls right there on the floor in front of the cell. He lifts his head a bit like he's going to try and get up, and he fails and right there on the floor in front of the cell, he's dead. He dies. And everybody sees it, and it is this crushing moment, right? Judge Desiato looks over from the screen over towards the Baxters, and when he turns his head, we can see a bead of sweat rolling down from his head. He's sweating more than Carlo is, right? It's a damning evidence. It's absolutely, positively damning evidence. There is no way that this jury, having seen this, would not have convicted Carlo, right? And Judge Desiato knows it. Meanwhile, all of this is going on. We see where Costello is down at the cemetery talking to the vet that sits outside of the cemetery. And they have a very compelling conversation. She wants to know if he saw, and she gave a description of Judge Desiato and a young boy there on the 9th. And he says, yeah, Boozer Money. He remembered Boozer Money. He thought that it was hilarious that Judge Desiato was being such a jerk. And she says, okay, well, how are you so sure that it wasn't the ninth, but it was the 10th? He says, I'll never forget that day. I'll always remember the 10th. And she says, well, why would you always remember the 10th? And the vet doesn't say anything, and she turns to walk off. And she tells him thank you so much after she put a little money in his can. And she tells him what her name is. And she tells him that she's the daughter of a vet as well. And so that's when he tells her the story of how he would always remember the 10th, because 10, whatever year it was, that he was in Vietnam, and this tragic thing happened where his good friend died in his arms after getting shot in the jaw. And it was just this whole traumatic story, right? And this is why he'll always remember that day, because it was the day that changed his life forever. And it's a convincing story. It's obviously the truth. He has absolutely no reason to lie or to make it up. And instantly, Costello is aware. She has this awareness of what is really going on here. Or so she thinks. So then she calls Lee on her way back to the courthouse, and she tells her, we've got a problem. Here's the thing, yada, yada, yada. And so the next time that we see Judge Desiato, he is in his office with Costello, and she's questioning him about the whole situation. On her way in, she asks his clerk if Judge Desiato, what time Judge Desiato got to the office on the 9th. See, she's thinking, like everybody else, for whatever reason, that it was Judge Desiato driving the Volvo. And he sends his clerk on out, and he gets extremely indignant and defensive with Costello. And she reminds him that anger and righteous indignation, as he well knows, is the first line of defense of a liar, of a guilty liar. He's upset. He's pissed off. I mean, she's thrown off a little bit, because when the clerk came in and said that he was actually there at the court, and he checked in a few minutes before the trial, that that throws her off a bit. But at the same time, she's got this righteous indignation and this anger that's combating that. So he may not be hiding that, but he's hiding something. And it's in this moment that Charlie comes in and say, hey, isn't it lunchtime? And he goes with Charlie. He sends Costello on her way and just walks past her with this snidness, like, excuse me, I'm leaving. Goes and sits outside with Charlie, and they discuss the matter. Charlie tells him that he knows that it was Adam driving. And why didn't you tell me, brother? Really? Seriously? You guys have had dinner twice. Like, even the fact that you thought your brother had mowed down a teenager didn't cause you to want to engage in the conversation, want to ask him if he had been hurt, what happened during the accident when you mowed down this. Like, did you, I mean, what? Maybe he had no idea. Maybe he thought, like everyone else, that Coffee took the car on the 9th. I just think that Charlie could have engaged in conversation a little bit more with a man who he calls his brother, and is also the godfather to his to his son. But I digress. Anyway, it also comes out in this conversation between Judge Desiato and between Charlie that he is obligated to let Carlo go free, to figure out a way to let Carlo go free. But the evidence is so damning against him that it is apparent that he's going down. It's in this moment that Charlie kind of puts it all together, that he is in very deep with the Baxters, and there's just no way that it's going to go well for his brother if he can't let Carlo go, if he can't find a way to find Carlo not guilty. And so Judge Desiato has to go back inside, and Charlie takes it upon himself to go and talk to Costello. And she sees him coming. She says, "You're not going to bully me." And he has a heart-to-heart with her and tells her that the preliminary polls are in and he's doing very well, and he's going to be the next mayor. And when he becomes the next mayor, he's going to take care of her, and he's going to help her clean up people like Cusack and a whole host of other people. Now, he doesn't mention Rudy. He does not mention Lieutenant Rudy at all. But these are the hopes and dreams that he's selling this silly little female, in the hopes that she will let Judge Desiato off. She doesn't really buy it all, but then finally he tells her that it was Adam. That Adam is the one that killed Rocco, and that Judge Desiato did all of this to protect Adam. And then there is this moment of silence between Charlie and Costello where we just don't know if she's picking up what it is he's putting down. And then we see where Judge Desiato is meeting quietly, secretly with Mr. Baxter. And Mr. Baxter is making it very clear that Judge Desiato, come hell or high water, better find a way to let his son go, to walk him out of there. Okay? And Judge Desiato is confused. Like, he just doesn't really know what to do, but he's always got an ace up his sleeve. And so what he does is then goes into the courtroom, which most courtrooms nowadays have cameras. Apparently this courtroom does not. Goes into the courtroom, and the idea supposedly comes to him just as he is walking in. He goes over to the juror's bench, and their notebooks that they leave there in the chair, he pulls out a piece of blank paper and writes on the paper, not with his right hand, which is the hand I think he writes with. He writes with his left hand. You know, he's thinking this far ahead, right? So no one will recognize his handwriting. And we don't know what he writes on the note, but he takes the note and then puts it on the defense attorney's desk. And when he does this, we see moments, an hour, whatever, a little while later, everyone's coming into the courtroom. We see the defense attorney pick up the note and look at it and pass it to the prosecuting attorney. The prosecuting attorney looks at it and takes it up to the desk, and Judge Desiato reads it and says, "Do we know which juror wrote this?" Now, the jury isn't there, and they don't know, of course, what juror wrote it. He says, "Well, which one of you want to explain it?" And they both look kind of dumbfounded, and he says, "Oh no, I'll do it. I'll explain it to the juror. I will do it, since I am an impartial person in all of this." Laughable, right? So the note said that the juror wanted to hear the 911 tape. And so the 911 tape is being played in court. We see where Adam has just come in, and he's actually sitting on the Baxter side of the courtroom, the defense's side of the courtroom. Fia comes in, and she is, kind of hugging on Adam and canoodling, and then Mr. Baxter looks behind him and he sees her there, and Judge Desiato looks up and sees them holding hands, and then Fia goes and sits next to her parents, and Judge Desiato looks at Adam, and Adam is looking up like, I mean, it's happened. It happened. Yeah. Yeah. I meant to I wanted to tell you, but I didn't. You know what I'm saying? Like, deal with it, right? It is what it is, right? I promise you, Adam is the weakest link of them all. Like, he's the weakest link of them all. And if Judge Desiato had his eyes open a little bit more about exactly who his son is, he would have known that none of this was going to work because of Adam. But I digress. And so the 911 tape is played, and instantly Mrs. Baxter gets up and walks out of the courtroom. There's this breathing, this wheezing. And at the same time that this wheezing is going on, Adam himself is wheezing. It's just, he's so fragile. The sound of his own wheezing causes him to wheeze. It's supposed to be this dramatic, intense moment, but I just had so much, contempt for this moment. So much just disgust. Because Judge Desiato is saying what you are listening to is the last moments of Rocco Baxter. And as he struggles to breathe after Coffee Jones hit him and left him on the side of the road for dead. And Adam gets up and he walks out, and Eugene gets up and Eugene walks out. Adam gets up first as his dad is speaking, and he walks out wheezing. And after Judge Desiato got done with his whole spiel, this whole schmooze, Eugene gets up and he walks out as well. And we see where Adam is outside of the courtroom in front of the large window, and Mrs. Baxter is right there by the door to the courtroom, and she's grasping onto the molding. She's just so distraught and heartbroken. And we see where Mr. Baxter bursts out of the door after Adam, and we think to ourselves that, oh, he's going to talk to Adam, but no, he's going to comfort Mrs. Baxter. And in this silence, in this hallway in the courthouse, they can hear Adam in front of this large window wheezing. Just like he was on the tape. And we hear him hitting the pump. Psst. Once. Psst. Twice. Psst. 3 shots of the pump he takes. Mr. Baxter and Mrs. Baxter is looking at him, and in this moment, instantly they realize it was Adam that was driving. It was Adam's inhaler that they found on the ground. Okay, that night that Rocco was killed. It was Adam that killed Rocco. So everyone goes back into the courtroom after this. They manage to rally themselves. They go back into the courtroom, And we see where the jury has come to a verdict. And the verdict is not guilty. And this is actually when Eugene gets up and he storms out. When he realizes that his brother's killer will not be tried. And it's a crazy moment because Lee was there. Lee was there before they were able to convene, before this whole 911 situation popped off and this note was planted. Lee came in to talk to Judge Desiato. And at this moment, she thought that it was him. He's none the wiser. He's going to head out for a quick run to clear his head. And he sees her and instantly he thinks to himself, oh, I've got that money for you to give to Eugene for the sale of the baseball. And she wants to know, she's got all the evidence. You called me the day of the 9th, the same day that you called Costello. He knows now that they've been talking. And you gave me this case because you knew that Coffee wasn't the driver of the vehicle. And she wants Eugene to testify. And it's just supposed to be this whole emotional moment. And it is from Lee's perspective. Judge Desiato is doing his best to seem like this grieving father and this this wounded bird. It wasn't you that hit Rocco. She realizes in the back and forth that it was Adam. And just for a moment, she empathizes with Judge Desiato. And he says, go ahead, call the police to pick him up and to take him to jail. Just know that his life will be over and he will be dead. And she says, a mother and 4 children died behind your lying. I was like, finally, someone says it. Finally, someone calls him on BS, right? And he's kind of confused. He's like, oh, I don't like who I've become. And she says, you're still talking about yourself. Coffee Jones died because of your lie. He was brutally murdered because of your lie. It's not about me and me feeling guilty or me feeling sympathy about Adam. It's about you doing what's right, period. Don't put this on me. This is about what you need to do. You need to do what's right and save what's left of your soul. Right now, you need to know as well that you can never have me. I said that. I said there was really no need for us to explore this whole love triangle with Judge Desiato and Lee, because once she found out what he has done, she can never love him back. She just cannot. She'd shown herself over and over again to be an ethical person, right? A truly ethical person. And so she walks out of there and she's in tears. And so when Judge Desiato does talk with Mr. Baxter right before he goes and writes this bogus juror's note asking for the 911 tape, Baxter wants to know, how much does his girlfriend know? How much does she know? I want to know how much she knows. And he assures him nothing. He knows nothing. Well, you best to get my son off. Now, if Baxter had told him at that moment that he knew about Adam, I don't think that Judge Desiato would have let Carlo go. I don't think he would have arranged it all. But the die has been cast and it is what it is. Lee is extremely devastated when the juror, he denies Eugene the ability to testify on his brother's behalf. She is extremely disappointed, right? And equally as disappointed when, after hearing the 911 tape, and the jury, because of that being swayed, decides to find Carlo not guilty. And so when Eugene storms out, she talks to him on the courthouse steps, and he questioned her. I thought you said that this guy was honorable and he would look out for us, and he would, give us the opportunity. And she says, I thought so too. I thought he was a different person. She's so broken in this moment. She really is. And she gives him the money for the baseball, Eugene, and she tells him to take it and, do something with it, do something good with it, And Eugene doesn't. He takes the money immediately somewhere and he buys a gun. It is his intent to kill Carlo. We see where Fia, after celebrating with her family and hugging them up about her brother being released, tells Adam that they're having a celebration at the hotel later that night and she wants him to come by. And Judge Desiato, we get to see him coming into his house at the same time, from a run, at the same time that Eugene is buying the gun. Now, I'm not sure why he's decided to take a run as opposed to finding Adam and talking to Adam immediately after the court case and saying, what are you doing with Fia? No, I guess he's going to talk to him later sometime at home. Like, everything's fine, right? Like, I let this killer off, and his killer father isn't going to kill any of us, so I'll take a light jog. Like, it's utter and complete BS, you guys. And he gets a call from Baxter when he comes in from running, sitting down. Now, he did call. He did call after Adam, and Adam didn't answer, so he sat down and chilled out for a minute with Django on the sofa. And he gets a call from Baxter, and Baxter lets him know at that time that his son is there and that he's having trouble breathing, and hope he has his inhaler. And this is enough for Desiato to realize that Baxter is going to keep his word and not kill him, I guess, but kill Adam, who is the real killer of Rocco. And Judge Desiato grabs his keys and he's going to jump in the car and he's going to race down there, but there's a truck blocking his driveway. And so he runs on foot downtown to the hotel where the party is happening, and he can't get in. He's sweaty, he's in runner's clothes, and he looks like he doesn't belong in this elegant party, and the security guys at the door will not let him in. Same time we see Eugene walking up the street. Now Adam is already in. We see where Adam and Fia are sitting down and Carlo is standing there and he's talking to Adam, unaware of what's going on. We see where Mr. and Mrs. Baxter are sort of giving each other glances and looking repeatedly at Adam because they both know what's going on. And we see where once more Mr. Baxter tries to break in past the security guards at the front of the hotel, and he gives them a good wrestle. And as they're wrestling and telling him for the final time that he cannot come in, it's not happening, Eugene slips past them and goes on inside and through the kitchen and out the side of the bar, where he drops the bag and pulls the gun. And we see where Fiona and Adam are standing there talking. She wants to go on a road trip to Alaska. It's hilarious. In the Beetle, and they have this romantic kiss. In this same moment, Eugene shoots the gun. Now he sees Carlo. Carlo is his target, and takes the gun and picks it up, and he's going to shoot Carlo. He's a good distance away from Carlo. Obviously, he's a terrible aim, or there's something wrong with the gun, because it immediately shoots Adam through the neck, kills him, and bounces off of a giant silver tray that one of the waitresses were carrying. So as far as we know, the only person that was hit through everything was Adam. At the same time, we see where everybody's getting down because they don't know where the shot came from. And Eugene is scared. He drops the gun and he runs. He's a young boy after all, right? Well, because everybody is down on the ground and the security at the door trying to secure everything, now Judge Desiato is able to get in. He gets in, he runs to Adam's side, and he gets there as Adam is holding his neck, as Adam bleeds out for a final time and dies right there in Judge Desiato's arms. And Judge Desiato is crying and weeping and pleading, no, no, no. And at this moment, I promise you, Judge Desiato looks 200 years old. He does. And the show goes off. That's it. Now, there's all this operatic, elegant, tragic opera music playing in the background. It's supposed to be this really, tragic death scene. And we know that this story is actually a remake of a foreign film or a foreign book. And there was 2 seasons of the film, I guess, the series. I don't know if there'll be 2 seasons of this. But I mean, what's next? We're going to try Eugene as a minor. I mean, is Judge Desiato going to preside over the trial of Eugene murdering Adam? I mean, it's just absurd. It's absolutely absurd. I talked about Adam dying. I thought it was going to be in a much more mundane way. I thought for sure that Judge Desiato was going to go through all of this and get away with it. And Adam was going to slip on a marble or trip over Django's tail and fall dead. I thought for sure that I knew for sure that Adam was going to die, but I thought it was going to be in a more mundane way. Like, it would have been so apropos for Judge Desiato to have gone through all of this, ruined his career, all of that, to only have Adam die in this really kind of mundane, routine way. This was a lot more tragic, but it's still absurd nonetheless. I would really like to know what you guys think of this whole thing. I'm supremely disappointed because here is another story that is being told in this way that not only dehumanizes Black people, but minimizes our pain, minimizes our humanness, minimizes our sense of love and family, and it kind of plays up the fact that these white men love their sons and have this fierce love and loyalty for their sons. I'd love to know what you guys think. Please put it down below. And until next time, honeybees, mwah, mwah, mwah. I'll holla.